is popping, everybody? It is episode 58 of For No Particular Reason. And thank God I can talk a lot because my amazing co-host, Yankov, is having some technical difficulties, which I have to laugh because anybody who tuned into my show yesterday with Nana, we were having technical difficulties, and so I said, "Up, Mercury is in retrograde, baby," and we just gonna go through the experience. So, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for showing up for no real particular reason. We're just gonna go with the flow. What's popping with you there, Yanko?
I'm very excited to be here. Hope all chappy and everything. And like you said it, I couldn't say it better. Well, we're just go with the flow for no particular reason. It doesn't have to look a certain how it is.
I love that so much. So, Kerri always has something on her mind. And it's interesting because you and I were talking about prior to going live how when we've learned the lesson from the experience we're in relationships with other people, whether it's family members, friends, lovers, children, dogs, whatever, we separate. And so earlier this week, I'm at the gym and I'm listening to the song Second Chance by Shinedown. Now, I listened to them years ago and I always loved the song, but I don't know. I guess at the time, the message never clicked. But I'm listening to the song that this past week, and it was like, tell my mother, tell my father, I did the best that I can. This is my life. Sometimes you have to realize sometimes goodbye is a second chance. And I'm literally at the machine and I'm hip thrusting mine. So I'm like lifting my hips up, working on my booty. And I like stop and I'm like, yes. Yes, sometimes goodbye is a second chance. And I think so often people hold so tightly to this idea that relationships need to be long term, or that because it's a family member, even a close family member, that we need to stay engaged in that relationship, even though it's so clear that the relationship is not serving. It's more toxic and detrimental to stay in the relationship than to part ways. But because of this conditioned belief, we stay. So what are your thoughts on that, Yanko?
I'm right with you on that one. I gotta say, this is exactly, and this is what spoke, started that conversation, because I believe that, we usually, if I go a little metaphysical, we choose the family we want to live with so that we can get to learn a lot of lessons from whatever we're facing with those people or with the family. And then there is a people that just come in and they might just meet you once and serve a purpose to teach you a lesson or to show you something that you didn't know about yourself, and they move on. And then there's people that you might just hang around for a couple of times, and once they get what they get from you and you get what you get from them, you exchange lessons and you show them different ways, or um, yeah, once it's done and you move on. And you constantly move. It's kind of like running water. Water always runs, and if it just stays in one space, it gets stagnant. um, and it doesn't mean that people cannot grow together. A lot of people grow together. They're it's kind of like taking the journey together. They're walking the same path, until they get to a fork, and one has to take the one side and the other one has to take the other side. But until then, they might have fun walking the path, talk about different things, enjoy themselves, enjoy their company, and so on. So it's not that it's a bad or a good thing. It's just how life is.
Yeah, 100%.
That's my perspective on that
You
one.
know, and that's the thing, it took me a long time to reconcile because I don't have relationships with some of my siblings who I grew up with. I don't have relationships with a lot of my external family. And so it took me a long time to not feel guilty about that, right? Because of all this conditioned belief system that was embedded in my psyche that blood is thicker than water, that you got to stand by your family no matter what, even though a lot of the people in my family, we were all brought up to compete with each other, to put each other down, to so it just wasn't that beneficial for me. And when I finally gave myself permission to just cut those ties without guilt, I really felt not only a true sense of peace, but so much love for them because I didn't need to try to change them. I didn't need them to be anything but who they were. I just knew that who they are no longer fit into the experience that I want to cultivate for myself. And I get to, as an individual, create the experience that feels right for me. And for me, I want to sit in joy. And if I'm not sitting in joy, best be believing I'm cutting that cord.
That's right. I had something else come to mind. In some of the like Eastern countries, they don't they don't go and try to change everything. They try to be with it. Like say they don't go and level a playing field to put a building on, or to chop bunch of trees to do a new housing area or whatever. They just look it up and say, how can we add on the top of that to make it more? How do we take it to the next level instead of leveling it all up and starting from ground up, which is something that happens here mostly. You go in and you find, area, you say, all right, this looks good. I'm just gonna level it up
Level
and
it. Yep,
make the best of it. Yeah.
100%.
I think Alan Watts had a talk about it where it says, well, in California they go in and they build the houses on those like mountain ridges or whatever, and then they wonder why they slide down or whatever, because they don't they don't build it with nature. They just go and say, all right, I'm a man, I know what I want to do, just let's chop it down.
Yep.
So I think the same thing applies with people. Like when you're in a relationship, you don't go and chop them down, you don't try to change them, you just help them build and become better version of themselves, and build up on whatever they are at the moment, or just enjoy how they are.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, interestingly enough, when Nana and I first started dating, and I kid you not, this had to be a week or two into meeting him, I said, I grow and expand quickly. And if I am with somebody who isn't growing and expanding, I usually shed them pretty quickly. Now, that's not to say, and this is really important for the listening audience, Nana and I have very different interests. So I grow and expand in my spiritual connection to source energy. I grow and expand in the work I do in addiction and mental health recovery. I grow and expand in, areas that don't interest Nana at all. But Nana grows in it and expands into cosplay, into fitness. And so it's not that we have to grow and expand in the same direction, but for me, I'm like, we as an individual human being, we're meant for expansion. And if we're not growing, we're contracting. And that's where we see the state of the world right now is a lot of people, because they've operated from fear, right? They have played it safe, not taken a lot of risks, not put themselves out there. And so they're contracting. And in that contraction, they're experiencing more anxiety, more depression, more apathy. And they're suffering and they can't quite understand why they're suffering. Whereas I, at this stage in my life, that almost 45 years old, my birthday's next month, woo, woo, I want to surround myself with people who are constantly pushing themselves to expand, because I know in expansion, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's unknown, even though there are variables, of which there are in anything always, but that person's happy. You feel better. You just naturally are a happier person if you're pushing yourself to try new things.
That's right. That's right. And I want to assume that anybody is unhappy because I don't live their life. Um, it's usually what
Yanko,
people share
bullshit.
with
You
me,
and me
and
know when people, you know what? I'm going to call bullshit. I love you to death, but Yanko reads energy. Okay, I read energy. So he cannot say he can't assume when people are unhappy, because you feel that energy. So let's call a spade a spade. You and I both know. And I actually was talking to my brother in law about this the other day, or maybe not. Anyway, if I'm sitting next to somebody who is overwrought with anxiety, I feel their anxiety from a mile away. I can sniff that out. They could sit there and be like, and I'm like, holy shit. And I know you do too. So understand this, people. Like, for somebody who is tapped in and tuned in, there's no hiding. You can sit here and say, I'm happy, and I'm be like, you are so full of dog doo doo. It's not even funny. Okay, now you can say whatever you were
uh,
gonna say about not assuming people are unhappy.
well, I'm not assuming that they're unhappy. Like I can feel and see that they're having some kind of thing going on inside, but not everyone it's even aware that they're unhappy. That might just be their normal.
That's true.
So I don't want to
That's a good
say
point.
you're unhappy or you're happy or and it didn't want this to sound any in any way or shape or form judgmental because I am just being in you're right, like I can feel people, and that happened to me before when I'm feeling panic attack, and I know what that feels like. um, and I know that I'm perfectly fine. I'm just vibing, and I'm having this good tunes going on and listening to music, and I'm turning around, starting to look around and see who's around me, and then I see this person and I say, hey man, are you having a panic attack?
Yeah. Well, I will give it to
And he turns around and says, a little bit.
yeah.
What's a little bit?
I will give it to you that there are a lot of people who don't realize they're unhappy, right? That they're in suffering because they are unconscious. That 100% I can concur with. And I don't come from judgment, but I just there is no escaping the fact that the more you're tapped in, the more highly perceptive you are to other people's experiences. Like, even in great spiritual texts, they talk about the fact that you suffer along with the other individual because you're so highly attuned. So even if Joe Schmo's walking down the street, I'll give you an example. I guarantee you there are leaders of this world that sit in a lot of suffering, but if you were to ask them, they think they're the happiest people in the world. They're in positions of power, they have money and affluence. But if I get into a situation with an individual like that, I still feel their suffering. I really do. For me personally, and this is my own personal choice, my own journey, I've suffered enough. I don't want to be around your ass. I'm good. I'm a exit right and go find somebody to play with. I want to play and have fun.
Yeah, that's you're not wrong about that. When you're so attuned with everything else, and I won't say attuned, but like going back to oneness, because everything it's oneness. So when you're back in the collective and you're more connected with the collective of whoever it's around you, then you're gonna then you're gonna be a lot more sensitive.
Yes,
uh,
exactly. Which,
uh,
leads me to
so it's not
go ahead.
so it's not about being more attuned or not being attuned, because you can be separate. It's all an illusion. You're putting those brakes, you're pressing the brakes on your own self. You want to be separate, you want to have your own experience, and you want to be away instead of or be something else that you're not. You cannot be part of the wholeness. You're part of it all.
Yeah, 100%. It's so interesting. Prior to me jumping on this show, I was journaling about an experience I keep having with this specific author. It's so interesting. It's this one author. They're very prolific. I mean, but I don't know. I always find myself in judgment of this individual, which then reminds me, oh, now something's going on with me, right? Something that I need to look at. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's right. Like there's this belief that I have to pluck out about being small. That, you know what I mean? Like essentially, I know I have the same to offer, but because I'm not in this position, right? It's all a me thing, total me thing. In that, I'm separate, right? But as soon as I'm aware of it and I just laugh, I'm like, okay, well, that's just a pattern of behavior, a belief that's still pervasive that I just have to let go of. I immediately come back to oneness and I feel completely connected with the same individual I was just judging 2 seconds ago.
I mean, the mind, it's wonderful, but it does, make up a lot of stories and wants to protect us and do all kinds of other things. And yeah, I don't
But
even
I
know
think
what it is. Give me this idea. What it is to be like your definition of being awakened. Like what it is to be like awakened. Because everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you gotta be awakened. You gotta be this and that and whatever." Like, how
my
about that? Like, what
definition
is your definition?
is to
Yeah.
just be aware of the present moment unfolding. Because I also think I can fall asleep. Like we have an ego. And like, again, so going back to the example that I just gave you, right? I was aware enough in the present moment to catch myself in judgment. Rather than then turning around and judging myself, I got wicked curious about what it was that was coming up for me because in that I can release it, right? And because we have all these embedded beliefs and stories that we may not even be consciously aware of, me just giving it that quarter second recognition is the healing, I believe, because then I just let it go and I come back to peace. That to me is being awake because I also feel like, I mean, if you can be awakened and fall right back asleep. In fact, in the Bible, Christ warns about doing this work and then falling back asleep. Guess what? Then you go down, you end up suffering even more. So I don't ever think there's an end goal. I don't know that I've ever achieved awaken. I know that my choice or my lens is to always come back to love. And if I find myself out of that experience of love, I get curious about what's going on internally with me that's taking me away from it and I release that. That's all I know.
Right. And how about dreams? When you in a dream and you think of that you don't have a control of the dream, do you still have the same kind of experience when you observing and doing the same in the dream state of like catching yourself and releasing?
More now than I have. Yeah. I have more, but I have more awareness in my dreams than I ever had. But I'm not a bit, interestingly enough,
That's the that's the key. That's the key. The awareness factor, it's the key. That's what I was trying to find out. Because like you expand your awareness not only when you're present in the now, but also when you're in the sleep
well,
state,
you know what's
you also have
interesting?
that awareness.
In my dreams, I found like that's how I healed my fear of death. It was because I remember, I don't even know how long ago, somebody's like, if you die in your dreams, you're never gonna wake up. This is what I heard, whether that's true or not. So if I'm present to a dream, I always woke up
Mhm.
before I died. Always, because I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I'm not gonna wake up, so I gotta wake up. Now I just kind of ride out the wave because and that helped me overcome my fear of death.
Oh, that's wonderful. So
You're so
did
funny.
you
I
had an
love when you say,
experience?
"Oh, that's wonderful." That that's your
Well, it is
signature
one. It is.
saying.
It is a wonderful. I mean, to me, it's wonderful. Like if I'm dying in my dreams and I'm afraid of dying, and I push myself to get curious about the whole process, then next time I'll be like, I want to see what it feels like to die in my dreams. You know what I mean? Would that be like a exciting experience to have?
Yeah, but I mean, I think most people that's their greatest fear is death.
I know, but this is because of the illusion that they're gonna,
Cease cease to
that
be.
it's temporary, and they, yeah, or they're gonna end, or the dead it's the end and all that. But like once you know that the dead it's not the end, then it's just another thing,
Yeah.
like anything else in life. But you gotta come to that realization, and then you can just kind of like be more present and just live in the moment more, I guess.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
the thing is just being present and living in the moment. I saw somebody I used to know. I haven't engaged with her for years, but she posted on social media yesterday after having a hiatus for a year that her daughter, who's the same age as one of my daughters, had a stroke. And I mean, over the course of this year, she's had to fight back. Think about it. When you have a stroke, you have to relearn how to walk. You have to relearn how to talk. You have to relearn how to do everything. It's like you're a brand new baby. And I was thinking about that. And, that is, I constantly get reminders about being in the present moment, but that was just another opportunity for me to say, like, 2 minutes from now is not promised. So I give myself the gift of just being here now. And in this, I'm peaceful. I'm loving. I don't sit in this anxiety of what if or this depression of I should have.
That's right. And this is side effect of having a mind, because the mind wants to protect you and predict the future and compare and do all those other things that, when you turn it off and you're in the moment, you're not naming things, you're not comparing things, you're not saying, oh, this is beautiful or this is ugly, or this is good, this is bad, or whatever. um, there is bliss in that state. You're just blissful. There's nothing to make it otherwise.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's so interesting, for me, like part of my daily prayer all the time, every day, and many times a day, but particularly in the morning, is lead me away from the need to compare, control, judge, or understand anything. Because it really, I mean, it's it's so far beyond the capacity of the human mind to be able to understand that anyway. and I really work towards that. And it's funny because, I most often recently, I find myself being triggered when people tell me how I need to do things. And these are people I love, right? So a good friend of mine was telling me how I should present at speaking engagements. Another individual was telling me that I needed to do something with my website. And in my head, at first I get tight because that's a spicy little Kerri who's like, my natural default is to get defensive and reject everything, because that's a little Kerri in me. But then I'm like, I don't have to be upset about this, but I don't have to buy into this either, because I have no idea. I don't know. You don't know. What works for Sally Sue may never work for me, even if Sally Sue became
That's right.
incredibly successful at doing it that way. And so this is where I encourage people. All beliefs are limited because you're limitless, but at least allow yourself to have beliefs that feel good for you. And I'll give you a really good example. Maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I decided I want to do public speaking. 6 months into building up a platform for public speaking, and that's talking about creating a one page, making a website page, having curated talks to speak about. I said, fuck this. I'm not doing any of this. This doesn't feel fun for me. I'm not in my power. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to manifest people to come find me to speak. That's a belief that feels better for me. That's one I'm going to buy into. And guess what? 2 weeks later, hey, Kerri, you want to be the co-person on this thing? And that is why I tell people we have the opportunity to create any belief we want. And not only do we have the opportunity to create that belief, but it will come to fruition as long as you have conviction. Without conviction, it will not. But if you truly believe that it will happen, it cannot not happen.
That's right. And I've experienced that myself, not with public speaking, but with other things. If I have that conviction that I already have done it, it's done deal.
Yeah.
Like I have the feeling like I've done it. It's nothing new. It just happens naturally. Like because yeah, I've done
And you know what's
it.
interesting?
Yeah.
So I had that conviction, and then fast forward like 9 months later, for whatever reason, I'm speaking in front of teachers at high school, and I'm like, I got to put together a presentation. I don't know why, because I know that's not my zone of genius. I know that's not the belief I really hold. So I still, despite the fact that every part of my body was like, this is awful. I hate what I'm doing. This is not fun for me. I do it. The next day, when I go to present, not one, but two computers did not work. And I ended up presenting without a presentation. And it is because of my firm conviction about the belief that I do not need to do that in order to deliver a successful speech. I'm just
Well,
saying.
that makes me think of the what you saw you rape, and it kind of like that because like you start moving in one direction, but you already had something already planted, and then it
Yep.
coming back. So in a way, you have to go through it and get it because you already planted it, even you like it or not, because that happened before. Because it takes time. So in the
Thank you
beginning,
for
I was
saying
like that, thinking, yeah, because in the beginning, I was thinking that, all right, I manifested it. I'm a changed person. Everything is changed. I'm not going that way. This is the way I go now. I feel it. It is what it is. And then all of a sudden, things are coming back. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Why is this coming back? Like, is it this not working? But, you planted so much in the past that's coming up, and you got to get it and say, all right, I mean,
that.
it is what it is. I planted it. I gotta go through it and keep on going. And this is where I think people might get stuck and have the same kind of thinking that, all right, I changed, this is how it is, and now why is this coming back? Like maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm not. And this is kind of like pulling the seed from the ground up and saying, "Hey, are you sprouted yet? No, let's put it back in." 5 minutes later, "Hey, is it sprouted yet? No, let's put it back in." you know, so
I
that
mean,
that
and
that will happen. And
that's why think about it. What is it? Chandra Burns and Abraham Hicks and oh my God, so many people. Like, I mean, we're even talking about business people, like, have all spoken immensely about this truth. It's just that we want instant gratification. And because of that, we don't stick to the course long enough to see the fruits of our labor, right? It's like, again, if I always use the gym analogy because you can understand it. If you go to the gym for a week or two and think that you're going to see muscles in your biceps or abs, you're sadly mistaken. But if you keep going, then eventually you look back and you're like, oh, damn, I'm getting built. It's just that we want to see results, and that's not how it works.
that's right. Yep, not how it works. Um, but this is the reality of things, and you know, you get to notice it. You just have to be more observant of yourself and follow through of whatever in.
Oh, evidently Yanko died. So I can tell you what he was saying because we are in sync like that. You got to take responsibility for your own actions. The reality is so often it's easy for us to pass the blame. Oh, I got fired because my boss isn't fair. Oh, my family doesn't like me because they're all cruel. Oh, I can't lose weight because my metabolism is slow, whatever, right? And while I get that that's the experience you may have known, the only way in which you're going to change your experience is to suspend what you think you know and the things that you know to be true about yourself. You've got to take responsibility for, right? The reality is I made some choices that were detrimental to my children, and I didn't heal until I was able to take responsibility for the decisions that I made and the impact that it had on others. And in that, I freed myself from that energy because I wasn't victimized, believing that somebody else had forced me um, into that choice. I assumed you were saying take responsibility for your actions, Yanko, but please feel free to interject for me.
Yeah, that's exactly. If you planted it, now you get the harvest. Now you get the
Yep.
fruits of your labor. Just reject it, and if you're observant of yourself and that you planted it. If you're curious to find out when you planted
But
it,
sometimes you
you're
like
probably gonna find out instead of just.
I know for you in a hypnosis, you can go regress and go back to that, but I personally don't feel like that's necessary. Again, like, and there's no right or wrong, guys. Like, Yanko's and my journeys have been incredibly different, but if you look at our understanding and knowing, we're super aligned with the universal laws and the understanding that love carries us, right? But the very, very different journeys. And so, where he may go back and figure out where that seed was planted, I don't, but I do recognize that there was seed planted. And what I mean by that is when I was annoyed by this author. I realized I was annoyed. So I had to ask myself what's coming up for me. And in that moment, I realized I don't know when that shit was planted. I don't even care. But because I know it still existed, I needed to let it go. And in that, I heal.
It's a bit different. My experience is that a lot of the things that we haven't or we suppress deep into our psyche
Yep.
or unconscious, and they keep making us move, and our conscious doesn't even get to it at all to understand. Going back and regressing to cause of something and understanding it also gives you the ability that also emotion that's attached to that experience. So once that it's processed, it feels like you're lighter, the energy to move through or whatever that emotion was instead of being so. I like it and I'm seeing it in seeing it with clients. I even did when I was walking out of the session, the mirror and saying, "Do I look different?" And I'm just saying anything. I'm just kind of like doing this with my, with my shoulders. I'm like, nah. And she goes like, "I do feel different,"
Yeah.
and this giant smile on her face. But personally, when I go, I find out and I experience it and I observe it, but I let the body and be done with that experience, then I feel lighter. Now I
I
don't know
burp
why
up
that
energy.
is, but like,
I burp up my energy.
huh?
I know I've had a huge release if I burp up pockets of air. And it's interesting because it's not like it's just an energetic, like, I started doing it in meditation like 5 years ago. It was so fascinating to me. And at that time, it was so pervasive because there was a lot of stuck energy up in my body. Now, if I go out of alignment, and I've come back, like I've recognized and I've been aware of like a belief that's coming up, and I come back to alignment, I'll release that energy through a burp.
Yeah, give that as an example. You don't have to do that. All you have to this thing, and basically, when you go to meditate, you're not the doer. You're not doing anything. You're just allowing more. I had a guy that was too, where people are having expectations, kind of like how it is in hypnosis, that you're gonna be unconscious or you're gonna lose your. Um, you're the observer. It's always there. It's
Yep.
observing. You sit in meditation and you observe, and you start from the thoughts cleaned up and everything that it's been stuck. And the deeper you go, the body starts naturally releasing those, and it gets to the emotional body, and the emotion starts. And so, if you give yourself time for yourself, and just by not doing anything, just because you cannot be,
Yeah.
that's the other thing that people like can't realize, that you cannot not you're always existing.
But
You cannot
but
not
here's the
exist.
thing though. You asked me what awakened mean to me, right? And that's what I'm saying. Don't get me wrong. Have I partaken in hypnosis? Yes. Do I think it is a very beneficial modality that can serve people? For sure, 100%. But I also think our healing happens real time in real life. And Justin Woods and I were talking about this the other day because he had tapped me on the shoulder to help create a course in love, which is an addiction recovery program that we are presenting in Canada. And the course is basically built around real life. Like, yeah, it's great to sit at a therapy office and talk about what you need to talk about. It's great to go to a hypnotist and become aware of things you may not have been aware of. But the real work happens in your everyday life when you're driving down the car and you're triggered by Sally Sue, and you immediately catch it, and then you make a choice to get curious, release it. And it takes a nanosecond once you've done this. In the beginning, it does not. In the beginning, it took me longer, but now it's awareness, what's coming up for me, and releasing. And that is our power of being present in the present moment too. And that's the work. And I'm so passionate about this because I think people think that it has to take years to heal, or they've got to do all this EMDR or CBT, and it's all helpful, but if you're not applying it in all areas at all times of your life, then it's not really a useful tool, because you're still waiting for a week or 2 weeks to go back and practice the thing that you could do real time right now.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And this why I am still between everybody in humanity. Otherwise, I could have found me a nice comfy cave and go and be by myself. And not be able to be amongst people, show me things that I can't see myself. Have like to have that awareness,
100%.
and to help you get that. But it's just a method. I'm not saying that it's for everyone. It's just a method. Like that course you guys are building, it's going to be a method that's going to help resonate with that, to have some kind of method to get from where they are to where they from feeling to feeling great and good in by
Yes.
default.
Yeah. And again, I mean,
Yeah.
I think I highly encourage a lot of my clients uh to consider hypnosis. Uh but like anything else, whether it's human design, polarity work, Reiki, sound baths, going out in nature, like there's not a one size fits all. But I will say that one thing that is important is that everybody recognizes the present moment is the opportunity to heal. You don't have to wait until tomorrow. You don't have to wait until your next appointment with Yanko. You don't have to wait until you get out into the woods. You don't have to wait until, like, it's now. It's just now.
Right. What's tripping a lot of people is that, but they're sowing the seeds now, and they want instant result. And that brings me back about earlier, that you made the change, you're different, you haven't realized that you're different yet, and then you have to sow what you put in, whatever you sow. So, topic: when you sow things, you plant it, you change the minute you decided. Well, you didn't decide it, but you recognize that no longer whatever was happening in that moment no longer serves you, and you get to move on. Now seeds, but it's going to take a little bit to see the results. So you change that you're doing, soon enough you see the results of whatever you were planting or whatever. So we had to step away for a second. She'll be right back, but we're getting close to than hour, and we'll be wrapping up the show pretty quick. I don't know if I'm still coming through okay, or if I don't. Um, what is today? But it's life, and that's what happens, and we just go with it. Let's see. Otherwise,
Yeah, listen, you know what happened? It's called way too much liquid before I came on my show, and Kegels only does so much. Homegirl had a pee. I was like, I'm not waiting till the end
oh,
of the show, go pee. I've had 2 kids, and yeah, I also drink a lot of coffee.
I drink a lot of coffee too. This is the first one for today, but and I mean, we have conversations going back about the coffee thing. So, yeah, but to circle back to what we're saying is that, you know, it up was that, you change every moment, but to see the
100%.
results, it's going to take a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah. But you're never from
never.
moment, you're creating the new reality, and you're bringing everything back off into the now. You're constantly moving from the back, from the past into the now, into the now. And that's why a lot of things that are stuck in the psyche, memory, um, events, or whatever, anytime in the now, you're a situation that comes right up and it pops right in your face. And you pump
I
the
have a question for you.
until you decide to make a choice.
So my question, I'm curious about what your thoughts are on this. So you take through somebody through hypnosis, they work on a trigger or belief or whatever. Could it be surmised that if it's a really deep-seated belief, they still have to experience the seeds they planted with that old belief, even though it's been healed, and then feel like experience the new like truth? Does that make sense?
Say that again.
Okay.
If
So
somebody had a belief,
if you work with somebody on a belief around money, a lack mindset, right? You go
mhm,
in, you pluck out
okay,
that belief, right? Then they leave, but they're still experiencing experiences from having a lack mindset. Is that because they're still flushing out what they sowed? They're reaping what they sowed, and
yeah,
then eventually they'll
yeah,
experience it.
because in life, the way I understand it is that you have a initial event that you make that belief, and usually happens in early childhood, but it could be something from previous life, other situations. It doesn't. Most of the time, it's in this lifetime, and when you start going through it, if you say that happens, then you have a similar situation that happens at 7 or at 8. And every time you do that, that spread different places in the memory. So I can go with somebody and get that belief resolved, but there could be like other places that through usually when when the initial event and transformed, then everything else collapses because that initial event, everything it's built on the top of it. If you remove it, the whole thing crumbles and there's nothing. But sometimes there is something connected to something else. Does that
Yep.
make sense the way I'm?
Yeah. So eventually, if
Yeah.
you are able to eliminate the belief. Like you've eliminated it
Mhm.
in the present, so all future experiences are based off of this new belief. But at times you could do it, and there's still more shit to pluck out, so they're still going to experience it. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Cool.
It's like you give that example. You give that example as like you're different now, but you're still confronted with situation that comes in.
Yep.
Situation comes in. See yourself either reacting the same way you reacted before, or thinking, "No, this isn't me. Like this this is no longer true," and you just let it go. Like you were saying,
Yep.
because you already changed. That's coming up, and you're like, "Okay, this isn't me. This past version of me might have when that came up, but now because you recognize it because you no longer believe in that. It's like
Yeah.
saying Santa Claus exists and you believe it till one point Santa doesn't exist. You come, oh, Santa's gonna bring you cookies, and you're like, hell yeah, he's gonna bring me cookies. I'm not buying that. You know what I mean? So that's how usually how
Well, I think that's a really important point to touch upon, to reiterate, is that, for again, I'm going to use Reiki as another modality, but it's the same as hypnotizing people. So you go to the Reiki office, get your energy cleared, then you go experience something that charges your energy, emotional, and you don't let yourself feel your feelings, so you trap it in. You don't. You're trapping in energy. If you go to a hypnotist and you like pluck out a belief, and then you have an experience and you react the same way you would have before going to the hypnotist, you're wiring your brain to continue to have that old pattern of behavior, which will then be pervasive still, right?
right, yeah. Now
That's
lately,
super
what I've been
helpful.
doing is testing it out because yeah, because like I go through a change, we do the work and everything. Because everything happens in your mind, I can pace them into a future event that might occur where they're in the same setting where they can test it out and
Yep.
they can see how they react and that's and so if something else come out because there could be like a different thing, go back and change it based on whatever happens, and then we come back test it again. You're in the situation, say you have a problem with your mom, it's there. What's going on? How are you different with all everything that you're going to do differently now? Like, how are things situation now that you have this new perspective and everything else that we worked on? And usually, like that, it's no longer a problem because you already tested it. They already had that, and in their mind, it's done. Their new belief. Um, because I'll give you an example. I work with some stop their sugar cravings, and so we did the work, and I said, all right, let's test it out. You're in a picnic, and everybody of whatever else that's going on. What's going on? Well, I'm not going to do it. Well, why won't you do it? Well, we're going to be mad at you because you didn't try our baklava. Are you going to say no? Because I get to choose what I want to. I don't want to. I know that. And then I even throw it even deeper and I said, well, what if you want to try once a while, would you give yourself a permission to like try it twice? You not to like have it completely off. Oh, tested it, and then when we're done, I was like, okay, do you think we need to do more testing? How do you feel about thing? It's like, no, I'm done. Okay, I'm like, all right, and I'm taking him out of the hypnotic state. So I used to.
Yeah, I like that.
I work
I
with
mean,
people.
because
Does that make sense?
it's important. You know what I mean? But just know you ain't hypnotizing me to get rid of chocolate because I'm not giving that up. I love my chocolate in all
I
forms.
have news for you. I can't make you do anything you don't want to do, and
I
that's one
know.
of
Isn't that a
the myths and
beautiful thing?
misconceptions
I
about
know.
hypnosis.
Well, it's the
I
end of
know.
our hour, Yanko. What do you want to say to this amazing listening audience that we love so truly and deeply?
I would say you're my heroes if you stick around to the end. With all the technical difficulties that we have, we really appreciate you. I love you guys. I support us, and we love you, and we do our best to support you and give you that love back. How about that?
I love that so much. For me, I would just say do what feels right for you. I mean, if you honor yourself and you come from love, you can never go wrong and you can never harm another individual. Even though appearances may seem like you are, meaning, some people I I've disengaged with, but it's not because I don't love them. It's that I want to be in joy. So I wish you all the best, and we will catch you next week for episode 59 of For No Particular Reason.